Hello to you, wonderful person who clicked on my video. Thank you. I'm Masha and you're at my channel where we read books, buy books, discuss books and speak highly incorrect English. Welcome! So I just wanted to make a very quick introduction to this video. As you may already notice it in the title of the video. Probably. I'm not sure. This is gonna be some reading, traveling vlog where we will travel and read because I have a week of holidays. My parents are coming here, so we'll walk, we'll travel a little bit, and of course I will read books because I do that every day. I'm already ready. Okay, and I'm about to go to the airport to pick up my parents there, but I have a couple of minutes to show you what book I'm gonna start with. I don't know if I will read a lot of books, probably not because I'm a slow reader, but let's hope I finish at least one, and this is The House in the Cerulean Sea, this book. I know nothing about this book, but I anticipate some kind of cozy fantasy. I've heard somewhere that this is a cozy fantasy, not just ordinary fantasy. Aside from this, I have no idea what this book is about, so I will find out, and you will find out with me if you haven't already read it, because I know that a lot of people have already read this book, and I'm as usual very late. Yeah, let's go. The Thursdays were actually quite calm and relaxed. We strolled around Luxembourg, where I live, Abyss, but since it was cold and my parents were visiting for the third time, we decided to look for other activities to enjoy. So we opted for some cultural enrichment. And our first stop was the Petrus Casemat, whose origins date back to 1644. These were part of the medieval fortifications of the castle. Over the years, the fortress was of course expanded, reinforced and repurposed for various uses. This museum offers more than just a chance to learn history through books. It lets you experience it firsthand and maybe test your claustrophobia a little too. There were stones and more stones, and yes, even more stones. I also climbed a bunch of stairs without falling, which, if you ask me, is a personal achievement. Our next stop was the National Museum of History and Art, which turned out to be a massive and surprisingly free to visit. Well, I'm not a huge fan of museums, especially when there is no guide to share stories or fun facts about the exhibits. But this museum really has everything: stones, bones, vessels, plates, coins, paintings, clocks, cars, a sculpture of a boy and a girl sitting together. You name it, they've got it. At evenings we usually waited for something to happen, and sometimes something happens. It is currently 5 a.m. and I already regret that idea. Who thought that was a good decision? Oh yeah, that was me. Anyways, we are going to Paris today. That's it. And about the books. I didn't read a lot of the book. I just read 50 pages yesterday and I am in love with the book for now. It seems very funny and cute and adorable. And as we are going to spend approximately 4 hours in the train, I'll do some reading today. But I did in fact read this collection of stories. and I like it. Hello, it's me from the future. Finally finding the time to talk about the books I read during this cozy holiday season. So, this collection of winter-themed mystery stories by our beloved Agatha Christie was one of the best things I did during the Christmas and New Year's. Though not every story brought me immense enjoyment, most of them did, especially ones featuring Poirot. This Belgian gentleman is my absolute favorite. Interestingly, not all the stories in the collection revolves around murder, despite the title, Midwinter Murder, which was a refreshing change for me since I expect crimes from the Queen of Mystery, usually. The introduction here is delightful too, written by Agatha herself. She reminisces here about the Christmas celebrations from her childhood and humorously notes how people's digestions were much better back then. Classic grumpy grandma vibes, utterly endearing. Honestly, in my opinion, this book is perfect for the winter festive season, which is already behind us. So I won't urge you to grab it right now, but saving it for the next winter might be a brilliant idea. Let's go! Getting to Paris from here takes about 2 hours, which I had fully planned to spend reading. And as you can see, I even started, but then I just ended up falling asleep. Spoiler alert, the same thing happened on the way back too. I had actually been to Paris with my parents about 10 years ago, so this trip was a wonderful chance to revisit the city. And honestly, I enjoyed it more this time for some reason. That said, after living in a small village in Luxembourg, the city now feels way too crowded for me. Of course, I couldn't visit Paris without stopping by Shakespeare and Company. It's an opportunity I just couldn't pass up. And naturally, I couldn't also leave this place empty-handed. The next day, I made the mistake of planning yet another early trip. But there was no turning back at that point. This time we went to Strasbourg, and once again, I spent the entire train ride sleeping, not even attempting to record anything, sorry. Thankfully, breakfast and a cup of coffee at the charming cafe brought me back to life for the day. This trip, for me, was a wonderful and relaxing experience. Strasbourg is a beautiful city with breathtaking architecture and a rich historical background. It was pure joy to stroll around, soaking in the atmosphere and admiring everything around us. Oh, and we did pick up some wine from the caves, though of course that wasn't the main reason for our visit. Of course not. The final day of my parents' trip was a bit bittersweet. First of all, they were leaving. Secondly, it rained all day long. And to top it off, I was only halfway through my book. On the bright side, though, I finally had time to sit down and read. And that's exactly what I did. Well, I finished the book finally, and if I were to describe this book in one sentence, I would say that this book is the impersonation of comfort and coziness. And honestly, that's all I really needed to know before diving in. I understand that not everyone is a fan of books centered on small communities, but for me, this book hit all the right notes. It was such a unique reading experience. Time and again, events poised to take a darker turn. The moments I caught myself thinking, oh no, this is gonna to end badly, because they mirrored the familiar plot lines that typically lead to conflicts. But in this book, no, those conflicts never materialize, which is honestly so refreshing. What is the story about? Our protagonist is Linus Baker, a 40-year-old caseworker for the department in charge of magical youth, or the ICOMY, if I'm saying this correctly. His job involves visiting orphanages for unusual children to conduct reviews, ensuring that these children are well cared for, and outside of work, Linus lives his dull, solitary life with his cat, but one day an extremely upper management assigns him a very classified task to visit a very special orphanage with a very special children. And basically the book revolves around his visit to this place. I adored every character in this book, especially the children. They not only have unique appearances, but distinct and charming personalities. As we get to know them, they bloom into the most lovable characters imaginable, and the character growth, especially Linus's, is beautifully portrayed. The author cleverly shows the character development by revisiting familiar scenarios from the beginning of the book, only this time Linus reacts in a completely different ways. It's such a satisfying progression and very simple yet an effective way to show it. The humor in this book is another highlight. I found myself chuckling and smiling constantly. The sarcastic commentary on bureaucracy, particularly in the opening chapters where DICOMY, DICOMY, is introduced, was a hilarious read. At least for me. At its core, this book is about unconditional love and accepting others for who they are. It reminds us that our lives can change profoundly if we're willing to open our hearts and minds. Occasionally, a book comes along that steals my heart from the very first page, and this book was one of those rare gems. It's warm, light-hearted, funny, and feels like home. What more could I ask for? And that brings us to the end of this video, I guess. So, what have you been up to recently? What books have you read? Have you picked up any of the ones I mentioned? And what did you think of them? Let me know everything in the comments. Stay safe, good luck, happy reading, and see you next time.